This is a 7-day, completely spur-of-the-moment backpacking loop I did with my good friend Bob in Montana's Bob Marshall Wilderness. Some of the highlights of our trip include several beautiful backcountry lakes, quite a few beautiful waterfalls, and some scenic mountain pass views. We also had several creek crossings, we got our feet wet a bunch, and had to step over a lot of trees. To top it off, we even did some unplanned scrambling. The following is the first-person account of how the whole trip went down. What's up, everybody? My name is Joey, and today is June 24th, 2021, and I'm about to go do a 7-day backpacking trip in Montana's Bob Marshall Wilderness. Now, the Bob Marshall is one of the largest wilderness areas in all of North America. It's also one of the wildest places left in the lower 48 states. It's got a bunch of grizzly bears, wolves, all the animals. It's part of the Rocky Mountains. It's the northernmost part of the Rocky Mountains in the lower 48, almost up into Canada. And at this point, don't really know what I'm gonna do. This is kind of a spur-of-the-moment trip. I was planning to go somewhere else with my good friend Bob, and yesterday called an audible, said, "Bob, let's go to the Bob." And Bob's like, "Sounds good." So I'm driving over to meet him near Seeley Lake. On the way, I'm going to be coming up with a route, and we'll go from there. So let's get this adventure underway. So I am turning off the interstate and now going to head towards Seeley Lake, and my plan is to meet Bob about 15 miles before Seeley Lake. There's a T intersection. Gonna meet him there and figure out what to do next. Bob! Yeah, so that could be the first night. I mean, we could even go this way, we can go this way. We can, you know what, let's get to camp. And then we have all night to look at the map in the morning. Yeah, so we are now heading north towards Holland Lake, and that's where we plan to start our trip from. Still not really sure what route we're gonna do, but we're gonna have multiple options for loops from this trailhead. So that's why we're gonna go there. Also, it's the closest trailhead to where we're at, and this day has dragged on a lot longer than we intended, so this will be like the quickest way to get into a good camping spot for tonight. So, headed to Holland Lake. Let's go. This is my buddy Bob. Been hiking with this guy for a while. How old are you, Bob?
Almost 70.
Almost 70. And you're finally getting to the Bob Marshall. Bob goes to the Bob. Here we go. So this is the East Holland Lake trailhead. We actually have two options here. You can see this sign says Upper Holland Lake, where we're going, 7 miles that way, but it's actually shorter if we take the Holland Falls Trail, which you see goes this way. And it'll give us an extra waterfall. So we're gonna walk around the shores of Holland Lake towards Holland Falls. Here's a good look at Holland Lake. And that's actually looking out towards the Mission Mountains. We'll have a better view of those as we climb up to the pass. And there was just a beaver swimming out here towards that island, but as soon as he heard my voice, he disappeared. And actually, I'll show you where we're going. Our trail is just going to walk through the woods around the shore here. That way, Holland Falls somewhere in there, and then we're going to head up that valley to Upper Holland Lake. You can see how thick the vegetation is in here. This is pretty typical for everything on the west side of the Bob Marshall. Gets a lot more rain and moisture, so you end up with a lot more vegetation. All right, gonna walk up to the base of the falls. So this is Holland Falls. Putting off a lot of mist. So we have made one small minor mistake here to start. Turns out this Holland Falls trail that we're on does not connect all the way to the upper Holland Lake trail. It's about 500 feet above us, but there's no trail to it. But you can see we're not the first people to make this mistake, because it's kind of a use trail here below me. So we're climbing up this hillside and hoping to reconnect to the trail we want here pretty quickly. Gotta see what we're climbing up through. Just broken up cliff bands, kind of. I thought you said this was gonna be all on trail.
You said all on trail.
Well, so far this seems to be working out. We're above the top of the falls now. We just got a quick little rain shower, and I'm not sure if we'll get any more rain the rest of this trip. We definitely don't have any in the forecast. And the good news is Bob's plan worked. You can see the trail running right in here. So all we gotta do is get up here, be back on trail, and maybe another 3 or 4 miles to get to upper Holland Lake. I almost did not bring my rain jacket and pack cover. That's how good this weather forecast was. So now we're coming to a stream crossing. And the good news is we have a little bridge to cross on. But if you look right over there, looks like there's a camp spot in there, and we're actually thinking we might take that just because it's getting pretty late and we made that wrong turn to go to the waterfall, so we're gonna come up here and check this spot out. Oh yeah, this will work. See, we got a fire ring right there, another little waterfall right on the creek, and it looks like there's place for 2 tents right there, so this will work. So we've come in about 3 miles and we're right alongside Holland Creek. And how this works here in the Bob, we don't need a permit to come backpacking.
and we can camp anywhere we want to, as long as we follow leave no trace principles and just kind of respect other campers. First come, first serve. And in my past experiences, or I should say past trips here in the Bob, sometimes camps are hard to come by, and so you just gotta take what comes your way. And so in this instance, we might not find another camping spot until we get up to Upper Holland Lake. And it's almost 9 o'clock now, so this is gonna work. We're gonna call this good, enjoy the sound of the creek tonight, and go with the flow tomorrow. Here's a look at my camping setup for this trip. I'm using a Hornet 2-person tent made by Nemo, and I don't really remember the sleeping bag, some sort of Sea to Summit air pad, and I got a pillow, and you can see I've propped up I'm gonna prop up my head on top of my pack. I'll put the pillow up there like that, and then my head's gonna be elevated. So let's start day 2 off with a quick look at the map. Right now we are camped pretty close to this red dot. You can see we started Holland Lake, the East Holland trailhead, so we haven't come in very far. We hiked into the falls, climbed up about 500 feet of cliffs to get back to this other trail, came to our camp, and then today what we're gonna do, we're gonna start climbing up some more. We'll hit Upper Holland Lake, and then from there we're gonna come through a pass, this guy, Pendant Pass. Once we get over that, should have some good views, and we'll start dropping down, and our target for tonight is this Big Salmon Falls. We're hoping to find a campsite somewhere in here. It's about 8 to 10 miles away. Here's a look at the map I'm using for this trip, and it's a lot of maps for the Bob Marshall. I'm really starting to like these. They're made by Karn Cartographics out of Missoula, and they have it broken up into 2 halves, the north half, the south half. I'm using the south half, and like I said, really like these maps. All right, I'm gonna show you real quick what I'm bringing for food on this trip, as well as some of my other gear items. I'm using an Osprey 58-liter Exos backpack. It's the one I typically always use. And then my food, kind of embarrassed to show you all this because it's the exact opposite of what I want to be eating right now, but living off of a $20 a week food budget, and so this is what I went with. I packed all this at the trailhead too. Random pretzels, peanut butter, a bunch of random cookies, Twizzlers, a bunch of sale items. All of these Pop-Tarts were on sale for $1 for the whole package. And then all these egg white protein bars, haven't even tried those yet. They sound like they're gonna be gross, but they were on sale for $3 for an entire package, so I'm gonna try them out. Got a bunch of oatmeal. And then for my dinners, I've got some rice, mac and cheese, and couscous meals. And like to mix in things like taco seasoning and chili mix to kind of add some flavor. Got a bunch of caffeine, energy drink mix, coffee mix. There's my pot, spork. That's my stove. I cook on that. I have a fuel canister somewhere. And this is my bag I store all my food in. This is an Ursack bag. You can just tie it to a tree, and that'll keep it away from bears and other animals. Maybe I'll talk more about that later on in this trip. For water, I have got the Sterapin. That's what I use to treat my water. And people often ask me about camera gear. I'm using a GoPro 7 for this trip, or sorry, it's an 8. And then I just bring like a battery pack and keep it charged. And then I do have an air horn and bear spray, since this is grizzly bear country. Tell you what, the waterfalls have not been disappointing so far on this trip. This is like the 4th or 5th one, and they've all been pretty nice. This is right by our camp. So I think we're about 3.5 miles away from Holland Lake. And then maybe another mile to get to the pass. So here's a good look at Upper Holland Lake. It sits 6,148 feet above sea level. And it's kind of cool to be here. I've been toying with doing this loop for the last 10 years. And this is my first time getting here. A little more wooded than I was expecting, but still really pretty. And you can already see that the cliff bands in here have a strong resemblance to Glacier National Park. And then we're going to be heading that way to Pendant Pass. Got to find Bob. He may be already heading that way. And depending on how we do this trip, we could be coming back through something called Gordon Pass, which is up and around the corner that way. So we'll definitely be back to this lake at some point on our trip and probably camp here our final night. Listen to all the birds up here. So we are officially at Pendant Pass, which I want to say is like what, 6,800 something feet above sea level. You see that sign right there? We are now entering the Bob Marshall Wilderness. Welcome to the Bob. So Bob's first move in the Bob is to call an audible, and we're going to change up our plans again.
Me?
The trail we've been on, the Pendant Pass trail, just kind of goes down and curves to the right that way. And we could take that all the way to the falls, but what we're thinking we're doing is we're going to kind of go off trail this way, kind of stay at the same elevation. And if you see that big peak way off there, we're going to kind of go right of that and work our way over to Woodward Lake, which is looks like it's going to be a scenic alpine lake, and it's at the same elevation that we're at now, so shouldn't be too hard. Looks like it's going to be all open forest. So we're right here, and originally we were going to go down this way to the falls and camp, but now we're thinking we're going to kind of come through this saddle. We'll hit this trail for the Necklace Lakes area. Trying to get to that saddle right up there. Also might start to notice all the red rock we're starting to see everywhere, all in here. All of that. So we've made it to the saddle we wanted to get to, and this is all part of the Necklace Lakes Valley. And so there's a trail below us somewhere in here. We're gonna try to pick that up, and that would actually take us down to Big Salmon Falls as well. But we'll do that tomorrow. We'll walk out here for a better look, because you can see there's a lake below me here. This is one of the Necklace Lakes. There's a few of them in here. And that could be Holland Peak, but I could be wrong. There's a few peaks in here, and I can't really tell. But these are all part of the Swan Range, kind of making the western flank of the Bob Marshall. And somewhere to the left here is where that trail comes down. We could have actually stayed on trail from Upper Holland Lake and just hiked right over to here, but that was too easy for Bob. He likes to kind of create challenges. Anyways, yeah, we're just gonna drop straight down here. It looks pretty straightforward, and the trail is gonna be in between us and the lake. So we've made it down to the trail, and now we got to figure out what we want to do. But this is a lakeshore view from Necklace Lakes. It's prettier down here than it was up there. Starting to abandon the idea of going to Woodward Lake just because we're running into a lot of snow now, and so it means Woodward Lake might have a lot of snow, or not a lot, but kind of what you see behind me here. So we're basically just gonna hike until we find a fire ring and a good place to make camp. We just passed two people. It's the only people we've seen since we got on this side of the pass. And there's just no camps. We're wanting camp. Haven't found anything yet, but at least we're down out of the snow now. Let's check out this view. This is gonna be our camp for night 2. We took a side trail down to this lake. It doesn't have a name. We're assuming it's part of the Necklace Lakes chain. But we have this really sweet fire ring. That'll work for tonight. Walk out here and show you the lake. You can see it's pretty wooded. Definitely not what I was really expecting. But we have a creek coming in here, so we can get water from that without having to take water from the lake. You can see how thick the woods are behind our camp, and we haven't seen any bear sign or any wildlife signs so far on this trip, but we know they're here. So it looks like Bob is going Mountain House for dinner. Which one is that? Breakfast skillet?
Breakfast.
Nice. Now this is where we're gonna end day 2. We've got an awesome camp with a great view and a pretty interesting lake. I don't have much to say about it. Feels pretty wild out here. We're in some thick woods right now. Night 2. Well, good morning. Day number 3. Looks like we got some clouds again. Morning, Bob. Bob doesn't want to talk to the camera. He says his hair's not right.
Day 3.
It's day 3.
Yay.
Where are we going today?
I don't know.
Right now we are camped right here. And today we're just going to drop down this Smoky Creek trail to Big Salmon Falls. And then we're going to have a climb back up. And our idea is to get all the way over here to this Lena Lake and camp right here. It's about 8 or 9 miles away. Here's a quick look around our lake this morning. This is the lowest lake in the Necklace Lakes chain. It looked like we might get some rain to start the day off, but clouds are starting to break up. Here's our first look at the trail this morning, and I've had a lot of this so far and expecting more. Bob calls that a shimmy through. But yeah, there's been a lot of blowdown, and I'm expecting it to be that way the rest of the trip. All right, headed down to Big Salmon Falls. Trying to get around this one tree. Here's a great look at Smoky Creek this morning. And this is draining from the Necklace Lakes. And so we're kind of hiking alongside it as we make our way down to the falls, and really haven't seen it because it's been so thick in here with brush and trees. Headed that way. Here's a beautiful pond. Not even on the map. There's a lot of little lakes in here. A lot more than I was expecting. And it's also been more wooded and marshy than I was expecting. And now we're kind of down below the snow, so that's a good thing, but the drawback to that is the trail's pretty wet and underwater in a lot of places. So things have opened up a little bit. We have a great view now. And Big Salmon Falls, we're getting pretty close to it. It's gonna be down in here somewhere, so we're going down to that. Then we're gonna hit a trail junction and start headed up this valley. So we've made it down to our trail junction and have made a right-hand turn. And we're gonna have a creek crossing here. I think this is Big Salmon Creek, which actually drains down into Big Salmon Lake. If we had stayed on the trail we were on before, it would have taken us all the way down to a pretty large lake, but we're not going that way. Doesn't look like this crossing is going to be too bad. See, it's not very big. And we're about to get our first look at Big Salmon Falls. Gonna try this shot. I don't know if this will work, but it gives a little better perspective. All right, Bob's taking a turn. Forecast was for it to hit 100 degrees down at Sealy Lake today. Pretty hot down here, but not when you're sitting in a pool underneath the waterfall. So now we're leaving Big Salmon Falls and we're gonna start climbing up to Lena Lake. It's maybe 5 or 6 miles from here and about 1,200 feet higher than where we're at now. So we finally have our first bear sign of this trip. It's a bear track for size. It's smaller than my hand, so that's pretty small. And I don't know what kind of bear this is. It could be either.
black bear or grizzly. And it's not that fresh, but it's also not that old. You can see how brushy it is in here now. A bear could be sitting down 50 feet to my right. I wouldn't even know it. Walk right past it. At this point, I think it's safe to say we've hit about 100 trees down across the trail on this trip. And the trick to doing this successfully is to always know where your bear spray is and not get it caught on a branch. Not bad. And that's how you do the shimmy. Here's another bear track. This one's going the other way, but looks like it could be from the same bear. See my hand for size. This one you can actually see the claw marks, but those claw marks, they're pretty close to the toe pads, and that's typical of a black bear. Plus you can see how round this back pad is. If this was a grizzly, typically it's more of a straight line. However, it's not always the case. It can be confusing, especially in mud like this. More bear tracks. Definitely starting to feel wilder. It's the first day I've actually thought about the fact I'm in grizzly country. I think this has been Bob's.
Your legs are longer than mine.
Bob's favorite part of the trip. He's already mentioned to me 3 or 4 times how much he's enjoying all the trees down.
That's because I got short legs. Nice.
What do you know? A special present for you, Bob. Another tree. There are bear tracks everywhere now, and this one's a little bit bigger, but this one is definitely a grizz. See how straight the top of the back pad is? It's a straight line. If this was a black bear, it'd be a lot more curved. And you can actually see, here's a claw mark compared to the toe pad. It's a lot. That's a grizzly right there. So definitely some grizzly sign now. We got tracks everywhere. And then the forest is super thick, very brushy, can't see anything. And kind of just reminds me of being down in the thoroughfare or up in the north boundary trail of Jasper. Bob's loving it too. This is his favorite part. Here's another tree down across the trail. So we have made it to the spur trail up to Lena Lake. It's maybe another mile that way. We're at about 6,500 feet in elevation right now, and we're starting to run into snow. And so we've also found a fire pit right here. Nice camping spot. We think we're gonna call this good for night number 3, and maybe in the morning we'll walk up to Lena Lake, take a look. But at this point, we already know there's gonna be some snow up there. Down here, we have a nice dry camp. And Shaw Creek, which we're gonna be following down tomorrow, it's like 1/10 of a mile that way, so we'll be able to get water over there. And we're gonna have a nice spooky camp right here in this thick forest with all these bear tracks all around us. So this is gonna be night 3, and it's definitely gonna be different from our first 2 nights because it's pretty quiet up here, and we'll be able to hear anything that's moving through or past our camp in the middle of the night pretty easily. So here's a pretty fresh set of tracks on the trail right in front of our camp. Let's see, there's another one right there.
And check this out. See the trail? Here's our campfire. That's Bob's bear hanging rope. It's got it up about 15 feet, about 4 feet out over that branch. A little suspect looking, but we'll see if it works. So 3 days into this trip, what do you want to say about the Bob Marshall so far?
Lots of variety.
Yeah?
Snowy trails, muddy trails, rocky trails, 987 blowdowns to walk over.
What's been your favorite thing so far?
Not the blowdowns.
No?
Scenery's good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought the waterfalls
Yep,
have been
waterfall's
awesome.
great.
So here's a look at where we're setting our tents up. It's Bob's tent right there. That is my tent right there. And then our camp is back that way. So we're just kind of back here in the brush. I'm setting up kind of in the trees. Kind of sleep better when I'm up in the trees and there's grizzly tracks all over the place. I think Bob feels the same way. But you can see there's just nothing but trees everywhere. Right now we are camped here. And what we're gonna do today, first thing, we're gonna hike up to this Lena Lake, take a look at it, we'll backtrack, pick up our packs, and then we'll start heading down Shaw Creek. And it's about 4 miles to get down to the valley floor. Looks like there's a cabin down there. And once we get down, we're gonna start looking for a place to camp somewhere in this area. And we're gonna be looking to set up a base camp, maybe spend 2 nights and explore some of these lakes in this area. Well, we got bear tracks again this morning. Pretty big guy. This is definitely a grizzly bear. Look how flat his pad is. And then notice all the toes. And then claw marks. Look at that. Definitely a grizzly. I think this is a good time to turn on the Bob action cam. See what he does here. And what we're dealing with is basically a trail underwater. It looks like Bob has found a way.
$999.
So what does that make this one in front of you?
1,000. I want to climb over this one though.
Oh, so that one doesn't count.
Doesn't count.
Oh, good news is that one up there looks deserving of number 1,000. Lena Lake. I don't know what all that is. Some sort of algae? Maybe it's pollen. Anyways, this is the beautiful Lena Lake, which is at about 6,700 feet above sea level. Not as much snow as we were thinking was going to be up here. So this is the campsite at Lena Lake, where we wanted to get to last night originally. Would have been a great spot. Check out the view right from the fire pit. That is called the
Just like a shimmy.
that is called the backwards shimmy, for those of you watching at home. So we've made it back to our camp, got our backpacks, and are now heading down the Shaw Creek Trail. And basically we're gonna drop down into a big valley. Shaw Creek drains down into something called Gordon Creek, and that eventually flows over into the South Fork of the Flathead River. Try to show some perspective how thick the woods are in here. It's pretty much been like this since we left camp yesterday morning. We also haven't seen people in 2 days. More and more tracks. Another grizz track. Perfect form again. So now we're starting to see both bear and wolf tracks. Right here you can see a wolf, and I'm usually hesitant to point out a wolf track in the Bob Marshall just because there's so many dogs in here as well. But in this situation, we've been following these for a while now, and there's no human tracks to go along with them. Here, I'll show you some more. So there's actually a bear track. That's older. And then you have wolf tracks. Now you have bear tracks. There's another bear track. See the pad, toe, 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 toe. And then here we'll find a wolf track. Well, here's a good bear track again. You can actually see the whole foot pads filled with water. Here, that's a good one. It's a great one. Bear track, wolf track. Oh. Shaw Creek's starting to get a little bigger. Here's probably the best look we've had so far at these wolf tracks. Not as big as I've seen, but it's definitely a wolf at this point. Grizzly tracks are getting bigger. This one's bigger than my foot. I'm not really sure what's going on here. There is like a giant set of trees that have fallen down across the trail right where we got to cross the creek at. Trail's somewhere in there.
Not all right yet.
All right. More blowdown. And so this is a great example of what I mean when I use the word blowdown. You see how all these trees in here, they've been blown down by either the wind or a storm or snow or something. And in this case, they're all across the trail, and we've just been dealing with this obviously all day long, last several days. But I tell you what, you can find out a lot about a person if you take them down a trail that has 100 trees down across it. That'll work.
Maybe.
So it looks like we have a crossing of Shaw Creek coming up, and it's a little bigger now. We can definitely cross, it's not really a problem, but for Bob, the challenge is keeping his feet dry. So he's gonna try to cross on this log that you see right out in front of me here. Bob. This is the third day in a row where I don't think we've gone 5 minutes. 5 minutes of hiking without hitting a tree down across the trail.
I don't think so either.
Well, we'll start right there. Okay, 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 5 seconds, over. Ooh. See what I mean? Look at that. Another one. Starting to get our first view of any kind since we left camp. And really much to see, just a few wooded ridges, but we're getting pretty close to the valley bottom. And so we should be hitting our trail junction any minute now. This is gonna be our last look at Shaw Creek. We're at the intersection of Shaw and Gordon Creeks. Let's sneak up on Bob over here. And you might be able to see a tent behind Bob. This would have probably been where we would have camped, but there's other people here. And you can't really see it, but there's one of those patrol cabins back in there. And a few nice camps, but since there's people here, we're gonna go look somewhere else. So now we are headed up the Gordon Creek Trail, basically in the direction of Gordon Pass. And we're gonna take the first available campsite we come across. It's a bear. Black bear. He's gone. That's cool. So we're at our trail junction, and we are going to start heading towards Doctor and Coastal Lakes. And we're really hoping that when we drop down to the creek here, we're going to find a camping spot. I don't see a fire ring, but
Kinda.
we'll make a fire. There's flat spots. That's a camping spot. All right, we have found a place to make camp for what's going to be night number 4. It's the only place since we left Shaw Creek that we have found. See, we have a nice fire going. Nice spot to set the tents up. And not much of a view. A lot of trees again. As I walk this way, you might be able to see there's a mountain up there. And then Lick Creek is running that way. And the trail to Dr. Lake that we came in on, it's kind of running that way. And there's actually a stream over there. You might be able to see Bob. And it's kind of hidden. He's getting water. But yeah, this is going to be Camp 4. So here's a great look at Lick Creek. And it is running right behind our camp. And this basically turns into Gordon Creek and then flows all the way into the South Fork of the Flathead River. And then Flathead eventually goes all the way out to the Pacific Ocean. And if we want to go to Dr. Lake tomorrow, we're going to have to cross here. You can see the trail right over there. So this is the crossing. And that's Dr. Creek coming in. So that's coming from Dr. Lake and Coastler Lake, which are both up that way. All right, Bob, it's night 4 down here in the lovely Gordon Creek Valley. We stepped over a lot of trees today. Got our feet wet a bunch, crossed a bunch of creeks. What do you want to say about day 4 so that you always remember this?
I always remember it. Blowdown.
Blowdown? That's a good word for the day, blowdown. Blowdown Bob. This is the day you earned that name.
Not me. I was following
No.
you.
It's a great day. Saw a bear and lots of beautiful trees.
Elk?
Yeah, an elk. I've loved it. It's been wild.
Mosquitoes?
Just great solitude. Yeah, the mosquitoes have gotten really bad, but you know, it's part of it. Look at all the mosquitoes in my tent. They're in between the mesh and the fly.
Good morning.
Good morning. It is now day 5 and the mosquitoes are starting to become unbearable.
They've greeted us at the tent doors.
Yeah, you can't even get in and out of the tent without a dozen getting in. The plan for today is to leave camp set up and we're gonna do a day hike up to 2 lakes, Dr. Lake and Coastler Lake. Never seen them before, so have no idea what they're gonna look like, but they're up in some cirques higher than where we're at now, so we're expecting them to look pretty.
And get our feet wet right at the
Yeah.
beginning with the river.
We're gonna have to cross Lick Creek right to start. Bob found a log to cross on, I think, farther up that way. But it's not that bad of a crossing. Bob? Already seeing bear tracks again.
Starting to get a view of our first lake. think we're just a hair above 6,000 feet above sea level. And I love the color of the water. Try not to fall off this log. All right. A lot of open slopes, and looks a lot like Glacier National Park. This is kind of what I was expecting those first couple of lakes to look like. I was thinking Upper Holland Lake would be like this. Very glaciated. A lot of waterfalls and snowfields. And there is a great camping spot in the trees to the left here. And now we're going to backtrack a little bit and head over to Dr. Lake. Well, after a very windy and brushy hike to get up here, we have finally made it to Dr. Lake, and it was well worth it. You can see there's a lot of logs along the shoreline, and it's a pretty wooded lake, a little bit lower in elevation from that last one. I think we're at about 5,600 feet above sea level right now. And if you look across the lake, you might be able to see there's a bunch of waterfalls over there. Still some snow up high. Dr. Lake. All that yellow stuff you see is pollen from the pine trees that's just collecting on top of the water and all these logs. So we're done with Dr. Lake and are now headed back to camp. And Bob has given up on keeping his feet dry. It's just been so marshy and wet in here that it's just impossible. That's our trail right there. I don't know if they maintain this trail every year. And if they do, I feel bad for whoever has to come out here, because there is a lot of blowdown. Alright, we've made it back to Lick Creek. We just got to cross this and we'll be back at camp. Panning view of our camp, and I really like this spot. We're down in a hole, it's dark, it's loud, we got the creek running right beside us. See, we're getting the last little bit of sunlight through the trees there.
I like the style. I seriously want to do that.
So let's start day 6 off with a quick look at the map. Right now we are camped here on Lick Creek. We've been here for the past 2 nights. Yesterday we day hiked up to these 2 lakes, went up to this one first, and this was the nicer of the 2. Although Dr. Lake was pretty wild, and there is a camp at both lakes, and the only other camp is the one we're at right now. Today the plan is to start heading up to Gordon Pass. We'll go this way, and then when we get up to Gordon Pass, start dropping down to Upper Holland Lake, and that's our target for camp tonight. It's only about 6 miles away, so not super far, and this will be our last night tonight. And then tomorrow we're just gonna backtrack what we did on day 1 and drop back down to our car at the East Holland trailhead. All right, Bob, show us the way.
I've got to roll my sleeves up, it's hot.
Yeah. Headed to Gordon Pass. I think it's about 4 miles to the pass from here, and then it'll be about 2 miles down to Holland Lake. Seems like it's been all trees the last 3 or 4 days, but starting to climb up and out of them and hopefully have some views when we get to the pass. It's a beautiful view looking back down the Gordon Creek Valley. And just totally different from any other part of this trip so far. And probably my favorite section of hiking. We've been out in the open for the last hour, just staring at that head wall. Lick Lake is kind of at the base of that snowfield. So this is officially Gordon Pass. So now it's about 2 miles to drop down to Upper Holland Lake, which we won't be able to see for a while. We have reached Upper Holland Lake and I found a nice campsite right behind where I'm standing. Here's a quick look around the lake. It is a very hot and sunny day, kind of hazy. And tomorrow we'll kind of just drop off that way and drop back down to our car. So here's a quick look around our camp. You can see the lake right there through the trees. Pretty nice spot, and this might be my favorite camp of the trip. You can see our tents over there. And just nice firing. Bob.
Hey.
Night 6, your last night of this trip, last night in the Bob. What do you want to say about it?
Good day.
Yeah?
Lots of wildflowers.
Yeah?
Nice views.
Yeah?
Hardly any blowdown.
That's right, that's right.
Except it was pretty warm.
It was hot. But yeah, the trail was in great shape. Someone's gone through and cleared everything.
Easy peasy day.
Easy peasy day.
Yeah, we did two trips up there.
This is the start of day 7, and this is the last day of this trip. And all we have to do today is drop down to Holland Lake, where our car's at. It's about 7 miles down that way. We should have a bunch of waterfalls. And are we gonna take the Holland Falls shortcut this time?
Are you kidding?
Is that a yes?
That's a no.
All right.
Came up.
This is the Bob Way. This is where we took our little shortcut route back on day 1. And here's a great look at the main Holland Lake. And the beautiful Mission Mountains behind it. Our car is parked somewhere in there, so that's all we have left to do. And then we'll get out on the highway, which is running that way towards the town of Sealy Lake. I've got 7 seconds of footage left, Bob. Say something to end this trip.
Easy peasy trip. Except for the blowdown.
6:30 p.m. here at the Napa Point Trailhead. Just want to say a quick thanks to my buddy Bob, who's been backpacking with me for the last week and drove me all the way up here. We hiked out 7 miles today. This is the last man.
Good trip.
It was a great trip.
Good trip. Hope you got a good trip coming.
I will. Well, you might be the last person I talk to for a couple weeks. There goes my ride. I am all alone here. Here's a good look down at Holland Lake, and my car is parked right there. So about 2 miles to go. Normally you can see the Mission Mountains out there, but I guess you kind of can. It's just really smoky.